Sad that we go around the world talking about democracy around the globe, but suppressing democracy at home. So something is wrong within our nation at this moment. Right. But it is not something that we cannot fix. Well, my dad and mom understood that it took only a few good women and men to bring about change and justice. They and many others gave their lives so that we would not have to be here today talking about expanding voting rights. It's certainly some, and any of us could be very frustrated. But as John Lewis showed us, we can't give out, we can't give in. We're going to keep moving forward because we know we are a better nation than the behavior that we see exhibited right now. Yes. And so we today, as Rev said, we went to the United States Congress and visited with Senators Manchin and Senator Graham. And later we visited with Senator Schumer. And we visited with congresspersons. We visited with Clyburn. But we're also going to visit three more congresspersons this afternoon as well. So we're not going to stop. We're making a moral appeal about this issue of voting. And while there are a lot of issues that exist within our nation, voting is fundamental to it all. Right. It all starts, Dad used to say, a voteless people is a powerless people. And one of the most important steps that we can take is that short step to the ballot box. That's right. But you can't take the step if people make it very difficult to get to. In my own state of Georgia, in Arizona, and over 20 more states around this country. And as Representative Reynolds stated, that's why we need federal legislation. We don't need it tomorrow. No. We don't need it next week. We need it right now. And so we know that when women and men come together, and that's why we're coming together in Atlanta and Miami and Phoenix and Houston and Washington, D.C. on August 28th to say and demand that voting rights are expanded for all people of our nation. That will make us a nation that we ought to be. Some people talk about great again. Most of us don't know when that ever existed. We've seen spurts of greatness, but I have no idea what great again means. But what Martin Luther King talked about was creating the nation that we ought to be for all people. And that's why we're here today. Thank you.
Right. We'll take one or two questions, and then we're going to have the legislators join Martin and Andre and I in front of the statue to have a silent moment of prayer with our arms locked. To pray for them to have strength through the rest of their ordeal here. Yes, ma'am.
Deborah Bailey, Afro-American newspaper. You said you met with Senator Manchin today. What was that reception like?
We had a very candid conversation. He expressed to us his problems with H.R. 1. He also expressed to us that our calling for him to support the filibuster, he was not prepared to do that. He did not rule out a carve around. He says he's meeting with other Republicans and that he is in support of the John Lewis voting rights bill.
Representative Reynolds, two questions for you, if possible. We have about a week and a half until Congress recesses and about the same amount of time until the Texas special session is over. What can realistically be done in that amount of time?
Well, I think that we are doing everything we can to appeal to the United States Senate. As Reverend Sharpton mentioned, we're working. We had a meeting with Senator Manchin last week. We have met with the majority leader, and we've met with Representative Whip Clyburn and others, and we're continuing to meet diligently every day. Our hope is that they get federal legislation passed before we have to go back or before Governor Abbott calls another special session. We are determined to kill this bill this session. They call it a special session, but it's really a suppression session. And we're going to continue to fight. We hope that our federal counterparts will understand the fierce urgency of now. And finally, I remember, another word that Dr. King said: injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And right now, there's a great threat to justice in Texas as well as other states. And if we're not careful, it's going to spread throughout the other parts of the United States. So we need Congress to pass federal legislation so that we can protect our democracy and the great voting rights that we've gained because of the struggle.
Representative, these deadlines come and go. Then what?
Well, we're prepared to fight. We'll reassess that when that time comes. But right now, we're determined. We're laser focused right now with in mind that the August recess is around the 6th or the 7th. And we believe, Reverend Sharpton, that, Congress shouldn't recess until they pass this legislation. Yeah. We hope that they'll consider extending it. I mean, we're here and we're making sacrifices, but it pales with the sacrifices that were made by our forefathers whose shoulders we stand on. But there are millions and millions of Americans that are depending on us and are depending on the United States Senate to pass this federal legislation.
Let's not forget that the reason that we went and got the Voting Rights Act in the first place is to get past the states' rights way of doing elections. Yeah. So that is why federal legislation is needed. That is why we need to be able to continue even in August with the 28th March to put pressure for federal legislation. If we had to go state by state in the 60s, the generation before us, if they had to go state by state, we would have never had voting rights. It must be federal.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, there does not seem to be a breakthrough with Manchin or generally on this voting rights, these two bills. Where do you go to Texas? Are you willing to put pressure on Governor Abbott?
I think that the breakthrough, I told a story to the senator this morning. Martin Luther King Jr. came for the signing of the Civil Rights Act in '64. President Lyndon Johnson of Texas signed it. When he was leaving, Martin Luther King said to him, Andrew Young, his aide, told this story, that Dr. King said, Mr. President, now we need a Voting Rights Act. We not only need public accommodations, we need to vote. President Johnson said, I use all the political muscle I have, Martin, to get this bill through. I don't have the power to get you the Voting Rights Act. Dr. King left. Andrew Young said as they were leaving the White House, he said, Dr. King, did you hear what the president said? He said he doesn't have the power to get it. Dr. King said, yeah, I heard him. He said, well, what are we going to do now? He said, we're going back south and get him some power. On August 28th and other dates, we're going to get this Senate some power to pass that. We never had a bill passed that the odds was on our side. Yeah. We're going to pass this bill.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
We have some more issues. Statehood is here. D.C. statehood is here. Somebody stay. The local National Action Network chapters here.
Since 1801, the D.C. residents have been fighting for D.C. statehood. We have no representation in the House, no representation in the Senate, yet we pay the highest federal taxes per person